So, hey, real quick, if your project schedule looks like it was built in 1997, it's probably because it was. Some scheduling software out there, and you know which ones I'm thinking of, haven't exactly kept up with the times. And let's be honest, nobody opens those schedules and feels great about it. So, Planair is a modern CPM scheduling platform built for construction teams who actually want to use their schedule. So, real time, collaborative, visual, and powerful enough to handle the complexity without making you hate your life. There are better ways to plan, and Plein Air is one of them. Check them out.
So, guys, we have 59 minutes now to solve and dig into something that's been, I think, well discussed. So, maybe just from background, I sent Aaron an article, I think 2 days ago, and I was like, listen, I need you to read this and kind of talk me off the ledge a little bit, and then come explain it to our audience. So, did you get a chance to read the article, Aaron?
I did. It's uplifting.
Yeah. So, and again, for maybe some context for the audience, so
It ends. The canary is still alive. I was like, okay, phew.
I sent this article to a lot of people in my network, so apologies to all the text messages I've sent everyone. But there's an article from Citrini Research, which is a investment firm or investment research firm, titled "The Global Intelligence Crisis" or 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis, and kind of the premise is this idea of like AI productivity gains kind of going into kind of capital and compute instead of labor, which is what the economy traditionally is based on. And it looks at, from the vantage point of 2028, looking back at 2026 and what kind of falls out of that for the next 2 years. And so it's like it's a scenario planning kind of idea of what's going on. So I guess just to maybe shoot the first question over to you, how did the article sit with you, and how well did that kind of align with maybe your original thesis of what plays out over the next couple of years?
Um, First of all, thank you, Stephen, for sending it. Thank you, Stephen and Lars, for having me. This is a fun conversation because I'm like the most pessimistic optimist you'll ever meet, right?
It's the
But
only ones
but
we like.
ultimately, I think I'm probably more of an optimist than this article is. And a few things like really sat for me. And you're not alone. I think I got that article from half a dozen different people.
Yeah,
So it may have moved markets. Like that was
it
a
tangibly
big one.
did. I think they
Uh,
looked at the equity losses that came out like within hours of it being published. So I think
yeah, it
you're
was
right.
pretty impressive piece of thoughtful work, right? Like, and I
Yeah.
a ton of credit to the intellectual horsepower that went into that.
Yeah.
And God, I hope it wasn't written by AI.
I don't think it
But
was. While I was reading, I was like, did AI do this?
well, here,
Dude, that would be pretty meta.
and I'm actually gonna use that like tongue in cheek joke right there because what the article presupposes is that um, AI replaces vast chunks of the service economy, right? And the assumption within particularly the white collar service economy is that people don't have critical thinking and reasoning, right? Like artificial intelligence is an insanely powerful tool. And every day I open my computer to see something that I didn't think would be invented, yet here it is. And it is jaw dropping. Yet, I don't know if it really hits the definition of like intelligence, right? It doesn't come up with like new ideas. It is an insanely powerful research tool. It can get you to the right answers really quickly in a way that is very powerful. It cuts out huge amounts of time that you would have otherwise spent hands on keys. But it's certainly not creating this depth of intellectual horsepower that went into that article that said, "Hey, man, we got to watch out for the economic repercussions of outsourcing human labor to a server farm in North Dakota," which I thought was a great analogy or fact, probably. And so that's the thing that I think is missing from the conversation is people try stuff that doesn't make sense in a way that machines can't try stuff that makes no sense from what was happened before. And I think that creates a lot of the momentum of human advancement, right? Like airplanes. What are we going to do? Well, we got some balsa wood and more or less some
Canvas.
canvas. I think this is a bird, right? Like that's insane,
I
right?
think this is a bird. Yeah,
And, and yet these two killer motorcycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio, mosey on down to North Carolina and sling that thing into the air. And that progress of like novel invention, I still think drives human progress in a way that isn't AI. And I do think that this opens up more headspace for that,
let,
optimistically.
let me challenge that thought though, because I think if we're being honest about the the spectrum of our working population, we're not all inventors and entrepreneurs, right? Of the
Totally.
service economy, I would say majority are folks who are really good at taking orders and doing things. And
Yep.
there's no pushback against that, but we're not all inventors, right?
Totally. I thought I was coming up with an optimistic view here.
Well, I'm not gonna let you off the hook. Let's get Doomer first.
All right. So yeah, a lot of people like to be, like that. This is the challenge. Like if it's all Chiefs and no Indians, and
Yeah.
that's not a PC phrase, but like that,
We get it.
that doesn't work. That's not
Yeah.
how teamwork works,
Right.
right? And I think Stephen, that's a little bit of your point right there that you just made, which is a lot of what makes the world go around is the ability to distribute tasks and work and execution. And I think it's totally going to change what that looks like as AI gets adopted. But I also realize like the three of us are in this like bubble, of like AI, like all the time. And like that's not society, Um, and I
What
think
do you mean? What do you mean, Aaron? What do you mean by that?
so. If you're on your LinkedIn page, how many Jack Dorsey retweets did you see of the headcount cut at his firm block last night? How many did you see? Like more than one, right? I think I saw 10. That shouldn't, that I really am fairly confident that's not the service economy's LinkedIn feed, you know?
But what does that tell
Um,
us?
what I think it tells us, number one, is that uh, uh, this news sells, right? Like people want to repeat this quite a bit, and I don't want to diminish that. Uh, Number two, I think what this tells us is a lot of us are thinking, holy cow, something big is going to change. And yes, it will. And I think a lot of smart people go, holy cow, something big is going to change. And number three, I think the pace of change that we and our peers that spend a lot of time in technology think this could happen because we're experimenting it with it. We've changed our worldview about how cool this stuff is, what it can do. We have a much faster curve of expectation than the reality of 8 billion people, adopting. And so it's somewhere in the middle, right? It's probably somewhere in the middle, and I think the intent of the article below, or that you sent me, was a good one, which says, "Hey, this is going to change. I don't think by 2028, right? It's going to take a lot longer than that. But is it going to change? I totally agree at that point. And there's this middle of reality between broad society and like our anxiety of how cool this stuff is, combined with dystopian.
That's right. Dystopian future. Yeah. Um. Gosh, where do we go from here? There's so much to
Any,
unpack. Where do we go,
Anywhere you
Steven?
want.
Uh, I want to talk. So I took some snippets here from the article that just sort of like little phrases that blew me away, right? And I want to read this. For the entirety of modern economic history, human intelligence has been the scarce input. Okay. Uh, Human intelligence derived its inherent premium from its scarcity. We are now experiencing the unwind of that premium. Machine intelligence is now a competent and rapidly improving substitute for human intelligence across a growing range of tasks. And For me, and when we talk about disruption, you know, you're in the throes of it. You're in the thick of it. You know, you're selling, you're harvesting, you're doing all the tasks, right? And listen, there's some things you're good at. Some things I'm like, oh man, I need a marketing director. I don't have time for this. Like, what am I doing right now? You don't need that anymore. You don't need it, right? And for me, you know, I still am intimidated by Excel. I'm like, I'm gonna screw up an equation. Something's not, especially on estimating jobs, right? Something's not gonna go well. It's like I can have Claude pump out perfect spreadsheets now. Like I, there's like a level playing field that's occurring, right? And it's hard for me to sort of wrap my head around like this. Hey, everything's gonna be fine. I don't know. It's like I have so many thoughts around this, but it's like all I know, the barrier to entry now, Aaron, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, is so low. Is so low.
Yeah.
There's so many resources because now you have this incredible assistant in so many facets, right? Before it was like, who do I know that could possibly help me for this one thing, you know?
Yeah. So I'm gonna take this way off to the left.
Yeah, no, do it. I just did
So
too. I took it to the right. Let's go.
no pun intended there. There's a lot to unpack.
Oh,
It's a different podcast.
Like, oh, geez,
Yeah,
here we go.
exactly. With higher viewership.
I think we already have the title for this
Yeah.
one,
Yeah, we got it.
regardless of the content. But
Yeah. So we so let's why do people get a salary, right? So let's just do white collar workers, and like I'm that's a silly thing to say because we often forget like what it takes to actually have like good life existence in the world, which is like you need energy, you need shelter, you need food,
Security.
It's
Yeah, we talked about it.
friggin' miracle that stuff works at the scale it does, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and the further away your daily life is from what it takes to literally get food out of the farm to your table, like you take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
I try to remind myself like that's an insane amount of like sophistication and work, backbreaking labor to get it there. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, but let's just look at white collar. And I think Lars, a little bit of your point was, um, uh, the cost of entrepreneurship, the access of resources is really low.
Yeah.
So for someone to start something whole cloth, I do agree. It's insane. Like the bar for pre-seed investing just flew up, right?
Yeah.
For what you expect. However, most people want a salary. Why do they want a salary? It's stability.
Yes.
It's predictability. It's an ability to take work and have it in a defined expectation box.
Component of their
Right?
life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of their life, because
Yep.
I have kids, you guys all have kids. You know, like there's things in life that aren't work, right? And so when you look at why a lot of society chooses that, I don't think those incentives change. A lot of people are still going to want a salary job, which means big companies are able to do that more than small entrepreneurial shops. The article presupposes like the unwinding of companies in some way. It doesn't say that explicitly, but it certainly hints at this idea that you have these mega tech lords and like everyone else. And I think that there's probably that is not going to happen immediately because people want salaries, people want stability, and they're willing to have trade-offs and not take the risk and not build and not pursue a bunch of other stuff to do that.
But what? So appreciate that. But what happens when the company has found a better way? What happens when the company now? Again, you know, construction is the perfect example of like we eat our own, right? Someone can always do it cheaper, so we're constantly going at each other's overhead, lowering. Hey, I can save you 2%. Hey, I can save you 3%. Hey, I can save you 3.2 now, right? And so now it's a race to the bottom, right? So,
Yeah, money doesn't flow to where like people want it to go.
Right.
They flows to where the incentives align, right?
I totally agree with that, and right, like my job is literally being a capitalist investor, so like I completely understand that the motivations of saying like shareholder return. But I also think money flows in um, in construction. I still am highly convinced relationship dictates a lot of outcomes outside of like DoD work, you know. But on the flip side, the other piece too is the best idea, the newest view, and a clarity of approach of how you deliver a service um, dictates a lot of how commercial agreements happen. Let me give you an example. Accenture is always cheaper than McKinsey. Why does McKinsey have the brand, the reach, and the client depth that it has?
Their people, a culture,
Yeah.
product. I don't. Yeah,
I just think that I don't
relationships.
think that that disappears, and I do think people continue to get hired to do that. Now, I think your point is that like you this splitting of the haves and the have-nots get bigger,
Yeah,
and I think that's a really I don't know how to answer that, and it's terrifying.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So go ahead, Stephen. Go ahead, finish.
well, I was going to say, I think going back to your previous point of this like information delta that exists, which is like the three of us are kind of freaking out about this. But if you go and even I'll have a conversation this weekend with some buddies. Like, there's a likelihood that 90% of them haven't heard of the article, and so I think that is an indicator of I think the actually like the larger magnitude of this challenge, which is not only are people maybe not aware, but they're not maybe preparing themselves and being really intentional about how to position themselves both economically and professionally in a way that can create personal moats to maybe challenge this kind of coming wave. And so that's actually what concerned me more.
It's an interesting thing. Number one, I do not want to talk to anyone on the weekend about anything in AI. Just want to
He's
offer
like, it's like,
offer
don't
that.
call me ever on the weekend. Your
Yeah,
weekend conversation sucks, Stephen.
I'm gonna
yeah. I'm
FaceTime
going to
Aaron
eat
on the
Chinese
weekend.
food and be happy. Uh, and number two is I totally that point resonates. So like certainly resonates, and I do feel like particularly in the community, in our community here of like tech driven like focus in the built environment, the level of anxiety for productivity has like increased markedly in the last 12 months, about like what skills am I building? How am I more productive? Um, look, I don't, I'm still trying to think if that's like the right attitude, you know? I'm not sure. I'm totally anxious about it too. I got trying to learn as fast as I can. But on the flip side, should that be everyone everywhere right now? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of that.
Well, I do think in my opinion is that I want to get ahead of as much as you can these days. It's moving so fast, but get ahead so that you can take the learnings from maybe other industries and be more intentional about how we apply these technologies in our industry, right? And I
Yeah,
think
agreed.
there's a healthy understanding that construction has some moats, right? Whether it's siloed information, whether it's the lack of kind of digitalized expertise, like we have some moats in place, which is great, but that only buys us time. It doesn't guarantee our futures. And so, I think I've had a number of conversations, even a recent one with Hugh Seaton, where we talked about the flaws in this like human in the loop kind of framework and kind of juxtapose that to no, let's be the man in the man in the arena and look at these technologies as tools, better tools so that we can be more effective personally and kind of in our teams. And so I think that's
Totally.
my perspective, and I think that's maybe the bullish side of this is, okay, we're not Block. 40% of our company didn't get cut, in the last couple of days. Um, but how do we reposition ourselves? So let me ask a question out of that. As you look at managing the flow of capital for your business and look at where capital has already been allocated with the companies you're working with, what is your message to them and how has that conversation been around what this looks like?
Can I just repeat the question and make sure I understand it? Which
Yeah.
is, what, like, how are we talking about AI to our port codes? Is that the
Mm-hmm.
question?
Yeah, and then the second part is like, as you look at just capital management flow going forward, how does that
Hmm.
kind of inform where you place bets?
Cool. Um,
I
so,
always give two
so
parters to Aaron.
I like
Go
that.
ahead. You can handle it.
I'm
I got a
sorry.
left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, so I gotta.
Here we go again.
Uh, all right, so let me take part two, which is like venture capital, like flow of funds. So one thing that I spent a bunch of my career doing project finance pursuit for like these mega projects. And you either win or you lose. And it's either like your team of funding that wins and you got a partner and you got to go raise the debt. And like that's it. It's totally binary outcomes on bid day. Versus in venture, it's very much the long play to say, how do I surround myself with a bunch of smart people who have ample capital to weather the storm and navigate, what is undoubtedly a challenging experience. Building a company is never easy, and you want to get the best people you can around the table that help you do that. Um, our fund, $70 million fund, is like a speck of dirt in the grand scheme of like the venture capital pool generally. We have a pretty unique approach and thought process and like skill set and connection to this space. So my number one job as a member of that venture community is like help other venture investors be excited about construction, be excited about engineering, be excited about architecture, be excited about property management, all the spaces where we spend time. Because they have tremendous experience that they've learned in other areas. They've seen bigger businesses get built than I have. And that is a high tide rises all boats. We will do better by building a bigger pool of capital interested in this space. So when I think about talking to our portcos, it's this fair balance between people who really know our space and people who don't on that cap table. I think that's the ideal mix, is like a little bit of both, you know? And you don't want all one or all the other, because if you have all one or like all generalists, you kind of like, you can go off the reservation, you know? And you like this little bit of tension or feedback or perspective. So does that answer that second question well? Um, on the first question, how are we talking about AI? I mean, like, look, I'll be honest, I'm definitely not the smartest AI person at any of our portcos. They're all like much stronger than I am. And so like a lot of it is me learning, but also like uh, offering um, like someone that they trust to say like, hey man, not on a product side, but on how a client might perceive this, why don't we approach it this different way? Often that answer, it sounds silly, is just more agentic. How do I have easier time to value, less hands-on keys, and understanding why is your user group, a GC, a trade, et cetera, touching this to begin with? Like those three questions tend to like support this evolution. But every one of our portcos all over AI to build code and is all over their engineering groups.
So one of the kind of points that the article makes, which really was a paradigm shifter for me, was this idea of our products and services historically through all time have been oriented to human use, right? In some capacity, whether it was B2B or B2C, it's the human is the user and the benefactor of the technology or service. But we're heading into this world where potentially it's an economy of agents, and your agent is able to do all these different things, and so you're not having to market for the human brain. You're having to think through MCP workflows, understanding that agents are going to navigate this space in a very different intellectual capacity than our historical frameworks would allow. Um, is that a thesis point that you are aligned with in our industry specifically?
I'm going to try to be less verbose now that I'm halfway through my second cup of coffee. Um, so yes, the punchline is like, I totally, that resonates. Some actor had a quote recently that said, on Netflix shows, you have to repeat the storyline 4 or 5 times because everyone's also fiddling on their phone. Right? Ronnie Chang is a stand-up comedian
That's
who was
brutal.
like, how many
It's so true.
screens can I get in front of me? Right? Like the number of screens dictates like success. And boy, is he correct. And so part of me says like this evolution of saying we need to refine our product and how we interact with folks because they're more distracted, they're using it on a mobile phone, they're not paying attention to anything we talk about. Like this change has been happening. The work toward agentic model context protocol as first touch point to your value, I think is part of that evolution. I don't think it happens tomorrow. I think that's going to take quite a bit of time. It's not like, a couple of years, not months. And so, yeah, I don't think it's different than a little bit of what we just said about other challenges in that product growth.
Yeah, I do think it's I think the pace of change itself is also starting to be challenged, which is, we had the ChatGPT moment in 2022, and then we're like, oh, so like this isn't maybe like the typical pace of technology adoption. But I think even what's happening with Anthropic's models recently, that pace is increasing, and the power of exponentiality, is that a word? I'm just gonna make it a word. Now it's
It
a
is
word.
now.
Sounds like a
But
word.
like that idea of that trajectory increases pace as it goes. I think we look at construction through the lens of, well, hey, digging a trench is very hard, or installing duct. There's a lot of variability there, and we can kind of live in that space of the variability as a moat for us. But I think at the end of the day, and I feel like I'm always trying to like bring you back to Doom, and I'm not trying to do this. I'm just trying to like position some of my thoughts. But I do think the pace of change is the change component for us to really consider here. And even though none of us are going to get the timelines right, if we align on what the milestones look like, we can all be kind of better positioned to kind of respond as it goes. I don't know if I have a question there, but I do, Lars, you've got two, you've got kind of two relevant businesses in this space, right? You've got Contract Connected on the software side, you've got DAWs, construction development. And so we've talked a little bit about how you're looking at this as you grow these two businesses. Where did your head go with the article, but also kind of in this recent conversation?
Yeah, it's like, am I part of the problem, right?
Are you?
Yeah,
Yes.
I know. No, uh, on the software side, it's absolutely overwhelming trying to comprehend how quick things are moving, and it's like, is what I'm doing even relevant, right? What does the world look like in 12 months around some of this stuff? Um, when you read an article like this, or you are trying to just make the world better, you're just trying to make an impact, right? Make it easier for people to do their job. You can get overwhelmed reading this, and then it's like, but you can't just throw your hands up in the air and give up. And I think all of this, and so I say this is the more optimistic view. It's like we all just have to keep rowing our boat, bet on the good, and that we all want success for not just ourselves, but for our neighbors, our friends, our family. And so in the world of software, it's like, yes, there may be displacement with what and how I'm solving it. However, I believe I I believe that I believe in the abundance of time, and I want to return time to people. And so that to me, and I value that the time that they are. Aaron, you used a phrase I hadn't heard, but like keystrokes, right? Like, or something like that. It's like, as they're keystroking, right? As they're typing behind their computer, are they doing a more high value task, right? And that to me, that's that's where I'd like it to go, because busy work isn't soul fulfilling in my mind. And if we can level that up and again, eliminate some of that the busy work. Now there's just, I believe, the quotient of happiness and fulfillment comes into play, and like now it's like work isn't work. This is enjoyment. This is fun for me. So that's my very optimistic view on what I'm solving, how I'm solving it on that side of the equation. On the construction side, I have the benefit of having gone through it once before, a decade, 15 years ago, where none of the access to the quantity information and the quality of the information didn't exist, right? It just wasn't there. What is available now is mind blowing. The speed at which I'm able to go is is wild. And I look at the team and the infrastructure I had to put in place, right? It was it was human beings had to do some of that work. And I want to share another one. Like their moat, their moats were made of friction, and friction was going to zero. I don't know what friction. I can eliminate the friction. I can control a lot of friction now from a startup standpoint. And so really then it becomes, well, on the development side, it's like, okay, Aaron, what's my access to capital? Do I have those relationships? Right? That's not an AI function, but how quickly can I pump out models? How quickly can I do renderings? How quickly can I do all this? AI is we're knocking that out of the park. It's very fast now, and then so it becomes, well, then where is the friction? The friction is out in the field. Friction is staff, on site, trade workers, managers, leaders out there. And so I think there's the huge human component of job site leadership, job site management. That is that's the friction. That's the choke point right now. I see is that talent that's actually getting their boots dirty every day and leading skilled tradesmen and women. And that I believe is the moat right now. You know.
You've heard me say this before. I'm skeptical of AI that doesn't make the person better, not the company, not the process, the person. That's why Trunk Tools keeps coming up in my conversations. They're building AI that's human centric, designed to strip away the busy work and let experienced builders like you do what they're actually good at. And here's the thing that gets me: the average worker takes about 5.5 hours a week just looking for project data. That's a full day every week lost to digging through files and folders. So Trunk Tools is tackling that head on. Check the link in the description to learn more.
Yeah, I think that's valid. So Aaron, we opened up some questions to some of our folks on Substack, and
Oh
they
yeah.
had some good questions. And so I'm going to integrate some of these questions kind of
Hold
throughout the
on,
conversation.
buddy. Hold on.
Um,
I'm ready.
and
Also,
yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
make this observation. How did Henry David Thoreau language re-enter society? Like scarcity, abundance, and happiness have never been used like more frequently than in the
Uh oh,
last
that was
six
probably
weeks.
AI. That was probably AI.
Yeah,
Oh
apparently.
no.
Open sourced essayist. Yeah.
I didn't realize didn't I wouldn't have put money on a Thoreau reference in this conversation, but
Okay, yeah,
that's
keep
why I
that in
like
toes.
it. So Victor Machiri, who you might know,
Oh, of
asked
course.
if you were back at a GC running work, how would
Uh-huh.
you be thinking about using technology right now to make your life easier, knowing what you know from the investment side?
Totally. Number one, I would use email to email Victor and see if he could come work with me at
Yeah, you
GC.
got to just hire Victor. That's the cheat code.
I,
Just hire Victor. That's number one.
I, I love Victor. He's a great dude.
Agreed.
How would I use technology differently? So, look, in some way, if you look at our portfolio kind of answers this question, right? So I think there is still a huge place for exceptionally strong, deep content like Smart PM, right? They are like really good at helping you understand what's going on with my schedule and how do I communicate it well and how do I improve it. Um, that's like a no-brainer. Like I would immediately. The other one too is like how do I get information that impacts profit as like accurately as possible? Clear Story does that, right? With change orders, like get that into a source of record. No brainer to me. Like those are like absolute gotta have it. I think the other piece too is I would think really, really hard about my ideal workflow. How do I want, like, depending on what my job is there, right? And let's say I stumble into owning a GC and I got to figure out the handoff pre-con to operations because that is the most miserable experience in this industry, right? I would think really hard about where that handoff happens and how do I build a better workflow, probably with my own tools internally to support that handoff. I think that like, so that would be the third answer I have here, which is like build stuff on core fundamental operations that no one has figured out to my like awareness in the industry, and just build right there. Because now I have two companies. I have the core GC, and I have like this really interesting thing if you do it well that I've built inside our firm. Hopefully that helps.
It brings up the thought of like maybe one of the key value adds that the human brings to these businesses and workflows is value stream mapping, because
Hmm.
ultimately you're trying to understand like where's the value creation and the path to getting there. I have a value stream mapping book here somewhere. But like that path is ultimately where you can identify those friction points and start to integrate them, integrate different technologies into them. And I've started doing
Yep.
that with my work, with Via Technic, with my team, with my personal workflows. It's because there's so much baggage built into how we do things based on what are now kind of old archaic assumptions. And so actually revisiting how you do everything and just saying, okay, is there a Zapier automation for this? Or can Claude Code write me? Like, for example, when I schedule these podcasts, I I send a link, a Calendly link to someone and schedule a discovery call. We have a discovery call, and then I send them another link for to schedule the episode where we talk about it. And I was just talking with Claude. I was like, man, this doesn't feel right. Like, walk me through what are some better options. And
Yeah,
it
and
gave me like three.
they said text Aaron.
They were like, just text Aaron. You don't need to do anything. but it gave me like three different options, and one of them was to create some Python code and integrate it into a Google Sheet. And now all I do is I put a bunch of names in a Google Sheet and their emails. And after we're aligned on the fact that we're doing this, I hit one button and it sends all these emails with the link, and then they schedule. So I think it's the time to rethink everything. Kind of is my
Totally.
takeaway there.
Look, like I guess if if I'm lucky enough to be in that seat again, right, like get like have a really hard conversation about what artificial controls exist inside a lot of GCs, right? Like access to email, like Affinity. Like I use Affinity. Affinity is an amazing CRM. It reads all your emails though, and like that's like persona non grata at 99% of these companies. Why? Like why can't I start to automate deeper there? And that's a human question, not a tech question.
I so when we had Hugh on Hugh Seaton on the podcast earlier the week or last week, the thing that jumped out at me was this whole idea around, wait a minute, this company that Hugh's consulting with is still doing Excel timesheets, and I was like, hold on, you got to be kidding me, right? This is crazy. But the conversation went in this direction of, well, wait a minute. One, it's working. So why create disruption? Two, how can we leverage AI to make that actually now more efficient in its most simplest form? And that to me jumped out at, gosh, what an opportunity now that is available to everyone to rethink what their requirements are, to then not have to do the $9.99 per month per user to do an electronic timesheet. And really, you don't need 98% of the features anyway, right? I just need a timesheet submitted accurately the first time. And it sort of got on this path of, I feel like we're at this time and place where there are tools to actually simplify businesses and not create more clutter and more logins. But it's going to take a very it's almost like someone in each of these companies needs to specialize on one workflows, simplifying things, and creating that Python input to simplify the steps to be like, boom, problem solved. And I think that's going to reduce overhead, reduce friction, reduce a lot of that, that pain in a company. But
Totally.
that was like
Eh,
that jumps out at me because, well, now did that just make the electronic timesheet company that's been marketing to the construction industry totally irrelevant?
it's a really solid question. The other thing I would build though at that company is like someone to use Claude Code to find all the security breaches that I inevitably screw up, right? You know, but better to find them yourself. So wait till someone else finds them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, that's I think that's the counterbalance here, and I'm still long on cybersecurity. The more this stuff changes in society.
Yeah.
So let me ask the uncomfortable question.
Yes.
So the article kind of paints this grim picture for white collar work,
Uh-huh.
generally, and I
Yep.
think we've talked a bit about the moats that exist in construction, and I think a lot of that's true, but also there's a lot of white collar work in construction, and we've kind of identified some of these areas of friction that may go away. Um, does the construction moat apply to white collar work in construction? Asking for a friend.
Yeah. Um, you usually
Someone,
deliver that.
as someone
You
who
usually
hasn't.
deliver that first. Just then when we do this again. So I thought we were on to the fun questions from Substack.
No, we'll get to there. We got to get through the
All
mock poll
right.
first.
I think Stephen, what your question is like, is white collar work suddenly less interesting, less attractive in construction, like going to be disrupted by AI? And I look, it's a solid question. Nobody knows. I'm not going to sit here and say I know. I don't think it's going to be as disrupted in our industry as some other industries for a couple of big reasons. Number one is trust, right? Like most clients that I've interacted with, they appreciate that there's details there. They got a guy on their team that needs to know those details, but they just want to trust. They want to call you and be like, "Are you on the ball?" Like the culture at the GC I worked at, the ownership would drop by the desk, right, and they would just quiz me. And if I answered it 1, 2, 3, done. We're happy. I'll see you in 6 months. And like that trust level is white collar work in a lot of GCs, and that's not going anywhere in my opinion. Number two is what you tell every younger PE is like get in the field, right? How many times have you heard that in your career, right? A million. Get out of the trailer, get into the field. And there is a ton of opportunity in this space to still create this intersection between field and trailer that I still think is pretty light in the grand scheme of things. So that's two, that the AI is not touching that, right? It's gonna be really hard. And then the third thing that I think is it's a wildly complex, strange industry, right? A boring $40 million warehouse project has hundreds of contracts. Navigating that, first of all, having a thoughtful, documented SOP for that is highly unusual, if not impossible. Number two, documenting how all that works. Number three is predicting what people do wrong in ways you never imagined possible is like the skill set of
That's
what you
Of
laughed because
construction. It's
that hit
real.
home.
It's like, oh,
It hit home, right?
I didn't think I needed to say that. Wow.
AI is really bad at that.
100%.
Complex contracting,
yeah.
unpredictable results, intersecting real world and paper. Those three things, they're hard and they need talented people that we need to mentor and support and help.
We appreciate all that. We know AI is going to get better in that category, right? We know it's going to get smarter. But what I heard you say was like, beyond human in the loop, right? Like, one, there's critical components of leadership and management that exist out in the field. there's incredible opportunities out there, right? Whatever you thought of, like, well, I don't want to. That's blue collar, or no, get out there, get curious, go get dirty. It's fun. It's chaotic and it's fun, and at the end of the day, there's something there, and it's kind of cool. But more importantly, to sort of support what I heard you say was, there is a need for people to analyze the data, to manage the risk. I don't believe AI can manage some of the construction risk. Sure, AI can knock out a pro forma and do some of this other mundane Excel spreadsheet stuff, but at the end of the day, there needs to be this collective decision-making roundtable in conversation, right, with your partners. And that is where I believe, yes, sure, headcount may get reduced, right, because there's more efficient ways to do this, but at the end of the day, there's still just going to be a ton of people. And I do appreciate also what you said was, it is a crazy industry because construction is lumped into this big, oh, you build stuff. Oh, well, oh, can you remodel my kitchen? It's like, no, I build hospitals, or I sorry, I do wastewater treatment plants. Oh, wow, what's that, right? Like, the pie on construction is so large, and it's very nuanced in all of those different categories, from GCs to subs and everything. And I think that's where there's really interesting sort of rabbit holes to go down with all of that.
And the risk one is huge, right? Like, there's another startup, I think, Stephen, well too, is like Prime Point. I like think so highly of what they're building for a visual learning model and language model. And they can identify differences between drawing and spec, et cetera. And they do this example of like type schedule, right? To say a drawing and spec say something different. You need a person there to say, aha, like, what's the intent here? Mm-hmm. What will happen when I change this? Yeah. And like, that's the hard question. And we all know, like, plenty of stuff gets recycled from architects. That's
the previous job, copy and paste. Yeah.
This is going to happen. There's nothing wrong with it inherently.
Yeah.
But like, you need someone to, like, at the day of install say, does this make sense?
Does this make sense? Yeah.
That's not AI. Right. That's a really weird. Those are the gray zones that I'm still long on in this space.
So another question, Mike Shore asked the question of, and I'm going to tweak the question a little bit, but he asks, what are the factors you look at to evaluate, I'm going to say, like, a company's readiness from an AI standpoint for long-term impact in the industry? Like, how do you view whether a company is responding well or maybe not responding well to this change moment?
Company meaning a founder, like an entrepreneur, or a company,
yeah, let's say like a big startup.
No, a little startup. Yeah. That's how I interpret it.
Oh man, I'm gonna sound terrible. If I meet a founder who's not aggressively using AI engineering to support their code base, I probably am like, I don't know, guys.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah, that's fair. We talked a little bit about, the diversity in construction and how it's not a monolith. Victor asked another question about vertical versus horizontal construction from an investment standpoint. Do you have a preference or a thesis of how each is going to weather this?
You mean, sorry, just so I'm clear, you mean from an investment standpoint, from a tech investment, or sorry, for products that are solving more for vertical versus horizontal, from a tech? Okay. And now you might have to repeat the question if maybe Aaron's got it.
So now I'm really confused. Vertical meaning like hospitals, and horizontal
like buildings
versus like,
roads.
We're building a bridge.
But it's investment into tech companies that are focusing on vertical versus serving vertical versus serving horizontal.
Totally. So this is a plug for my own Medium page, which has some articles on like how do those two industries work. But look,
wait, are you on Medium? Is that what you said?
I am on Medium because I am apparently very old.
Just the last person on
He's old now. Do you have a yahoo.com email address too?
All right, I'll link your MySpace page, Aaron, so they can check out the article.
AOL over here.
it'll be on Substack in 11 minutes.
All right, sorry.
It's
Uh,
time. It's time.
uh, so 85, 85 to 90% of startups and like entrepreneurial-led technology focuses on vertical construction.
Yeah.
And this is from a commercial side,
Yeah.
setting residential aside. Vertical construction, healthcare, multifamily, office, whatever. Why? Because there's subcontractors there. That is the white collar GC, right? And so technology works really good when stuff's written on paper. When there's a bazillion subcontractors, that's more stuff written on paper. And that's where a lot of stuff is gravitated toward, is that vertical construction. Horizontal has a higher self-performed percentage, right? And I worked on a ton of horizontal stuff in my career. And when I look at that space, the process of how work is done dictates the best performing companies versus in vertical work, it's the outcome, the financial outcome, the schedule outcome, et cetera. When you're building a 30-mile long road, the process of how you do that work so you don't have huge wasted time and transit across this massive job site, huge exposure to the public, the traveling public, and safety issues that are way more challenging in horizontal work than vertical work because you got strangers hanging out at your job site all the time, you know, is really different. And so they're higher self-performed in the US, call it 80% on average. They're higher, with the exception of like the Spanish firms doing civil work. It's higher interface with the public, bunch of other issues. And what you see is more tried and true. This is the process. This is how I've done it, and in-house focus. That's going to change. I don't think that that's permanent, but I do think that that's the market today.
Well, and Aaron McClellan from Granite is going to come on and talk a bit about that. But yeah, I think that's a good perspective. So here's another one. Angelo Suntres, good Canadian gentleman, asks.
What does that have to do with this?
USA Hockey. Everything, Aaron. It has everything to do with it.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. I feel like there's more and more Canadians in my network recently, and I've only felt that because of the quantity of U.S. versus Canada memes that have been produced in the last week.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the government just created a AI generated video on.
I saw that wasn't great.
It's not a good look. I'm not gonna lie. That's not a very good look.
Yeah,
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I need to see this thing.
Yeah,
they put some words in Kachuk's mouth
it's
that wasn't
not
ideal.
It's not nice. It's not nice. Look, man. Like I spent 8 years working in Canada. I absolutely love Canadian culture. Canada is a different country. It's a different culture. I love it. I've learned from it. I have a ton of friends north of the border. And look, there's spectacular neighbors who have been our best trading partners, and we have a lot to learn. And mutually, I think that there's still plenty of respect for our culture and our work.
Who made the video? Did they make it? Or
The White House.
Ah, jeez.
Yeah, not great. But yeah, I mean,
What can you do?
I love Canada. I think I don't know. It feels like we're going into another subject, which
Focus. What was the question?
Hold on. All right. So
all I know is that we need. Yeah. Anyway.
Take that out later.
Well, so here's the question. We're talking about this big change happening. We're talking about potentially portions of capital moving from kind of labor to capital compute. In this age, what support do tech companies provide, or what responsibilities should tech companies have for upscaling and reskilling workers in the industries that they are operating?
Oof, that's a doozy of a question.
Right? It's good to ask those ones right at the end.
Right at the end. I gotta go. See ya.
This is like almost like a really difficult question. Oh my god, it's hard not to answer this with like a philosophical answer.
It's okay.
But
it's like a capitalist socialist question, right?
Uh-oh.
Because like I think,
and
they're both capitalist countries, right? But like from a philosophical perspective, it says if you displace folks who trains them? Is it the government's role? Is it the company that created the technology? Is it a tax base? Like, you know, and look, I'd say like I don't have a great answer there.
Yeah.
I think it's a really hard question. I would say this, which is, totally left field. Vocational schools are killer and
Mm.
totally underutilized resource in the United States, and not expensive. And there is a huge amount of skilled trades work that doesn't get advertised enough.
Yeah.
Do you,
That's it. I'd say not an answer. It's a non-answer.
No, that's fair.
no,
What's your take, Lars?
you might need to repeat the question, but I'm going to say, Aaron, I think, I mean, listen, if there's disruption, people need to make money, right? And we know that infrastructure is aging. Um, and listen, robots aren't going to be jumping in trenches, anytime soon, or just going and solving all those problems. So I'm bullish on that resurgence of trade work, and I honestly think this is a strong opinion. Every kid that was ever given an ADHD pill is someone that was designed to use their hands. They're busy people. They just need to go
Yeah.
produce and build with their hands, right? So again, certainly doesn't answer the question because I can't remember the question. But
Well, listen, I think I'm going to answer my own question. I think it's an extension of every tech company has a motivation to train their users on their software and related workflows so that there's like this value for value exchange. I think it's somewhat of an extension of that. It is, if we're looking at a world where tech is kind of fully integrated and kind of blends the lines between software and service, I think it becomes kind of a graduation of that, which is, hey, I've got a swath of potential, we'll call them, I mean, users seems like the wrong term to use, but it is almost like training the folks that are going to be interacting with the technology that you're getting value from. And so while they might not be a paying user, you're training the folks that are going to be leveraging your software in some capacity, right?
value,
So-
increasing that value to them. Yeah.
So, in staying true to asking the hardest questions last, in the last 3 minutes, I've got a bomb from KP that he dropped.
Oh yeah,
let's do it.
this is a big one, Aaron. Oh man.
I mean, I'll just the high level question is, is Contech venture a viable asset class as we look at just all the different dynamics, all the different angles to it. So in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, if you just want to
Right.
lay that argument out.
Totally. When's KP on the podcast? To answer that question?
Well, if you want to take the other side, we'll get KP on. We'll do a little debate.
I don't
Although
think
you guys
there's
are-
a debate.
You guys are both
We both do
ventures,
the
so
same job. Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
So I think the intent of KP's question here is like, if I'm investing money into venture, why am I hanging out in this space, right? I think it's like a little bit like with the alternatives. So if you look through the recent, I'll call it last 15 years venture history, sector specialists tend to outperform from a returns perspective versus generalists as a MOIC. And so construction right now is still not a hugely invested asset class. There's not a ton of construction technology versus insurance and fintech, right? So there's plenty of open space, no pun intended there, in order to find viable investments in this sector. Number two is construction technology and specialist funds tend to have a lower asset under management AUM. And so can you triple or more your money with a $50 million fund to 150 versus triple your money for Sequoia 28 at $10 billion, right? And like it's a hard thing to scale. And that's why you see this bleeding of high AUM venture into what is essentially private equity, right? You see late stage Anthropic $30 billion fundraisers called venture. That doesn't feel like early stage venture.
No.
And you need a space like here, which still has
Capacity.
comparative to insurance or fintech or some other spaces, room to run
Yeah.
to have true early stage venture. And so I still think there's an opportunity, but it doesn't scale to many billions of dollars of assets under management. It's small, and it's gonna stay kind of medium, you know. And as long as those expectations are not crazy off, there's money to be made.
Not only is there money to be made, but I believe there's impact to be felt by, construction professionals. Like, if you're
Mm-hmm.
passionate about construction, if you're passionate about real estate, the built environment, like, it's exciting when we can do things easier, faster, more accurate, lower risk,
Totally.
more safely. And we need those venture partners to help accelerate all of it, right?
Totally. And look, I'll end with this other piece too, Lars, that hits exactly what you're saying here, which is like who should be an LP in construction technology, right? And it's not fully in KP's question, but I appreciate the intent of the question here, which is like, why should I put my money there? And if I'm an LP and I'm interested in construction tech, I think that you measure that interest in three things. Number one, there has to be reasonable financial return. But two is there has to be eyes and ears. Where is technology going? The whole podcast we had here is the experience of where is AI driving society? How does it impact our space? Learning through the experience of an investment and through a fund is huge eyes and ears across the portfolio in extraordinary depth to say, what am I learning by these investments that I otherwise will not learn in my day-to-day work with vendors? Um, uh, and number three is ecosystem. Who am I meeting that I don't otherwise meet? The people who take the career risk and build AI driven companies in 2026 are smart, hardworking, and risk taking. They're not your rank and file staff at XYZ warehouse job. You kind of want both to learn from. You want to have that at bat. You want to build this ecosystem. And so the LP cannot just measure MOIC the way a pension fund does, right? And if I need to raise money from a pension fund, I'm probably going back to my infrastructure job, because you can deploy a lot more capital with
Well,
leverage,
well said. Well
you
said.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well said.
well said. Well, Aaron, thank you for this. Appreciate you kind of coming on last minute, and yeah, I think this was a great conversation. So appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. All
I
right.
need,
Look forward to my
oh,
Substack.
yeah, you're newly minted. But also, if you're listening and you want to submit questions, we have Construction Briefs newsletter on Substack, which Aaron will join here shortly. Go and join us, and you can submit questions next time. All right, that's it. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.